introduce our speaker of the day, Candice. We're thrilled to have her with us. She's a very knowledgeable naturopath. I would put her on the same level as Barbara O'Neill, which a lot of us are all keen to watch. We've all learned a lot from Barbara on our journey. Candice is equally as knowledgeable and full of really incredible health information. She's all the way from Chinchilla, as I mentioned. Do you still run the health retreat out there? No, she used to run a health retreat, so very capable. Now she does naturopathic consultations one-on-one via Zoom. So if you need extra help one-on-one, Candice is available for that as well. She's an experienced naturopath who's been helping hundreds of people to create better health and well-being. She also has this really unique way of taking science and putting it into a way of practical explanation that actually is applied to your life in a way that's simple. So I like that, don't you? Because sometimes you read complex scientific explanations and think, okay, what do I do with that? So Candice is wonderful at this. So get ready today to learn, ask questions, and take your health to the next level by getting your gut to a healthy space. Please join me in welcoming Candice Berghan.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be back here. I was trying to work out when I was here last, but it feels like it was a good year ago, so let's just go with that. I can't believe how quickly actually this year has already gone. It's pretty crazy. So first of all, I want to give you all 10 points for spending your afternoon with me. I promise it's going to be worth every moment, not just because hopefully you're going to learn a thing or two that you can apply to your own life, but because you've got some yummies coming your way at the end of it all. Now, I don't know if that's me making a bit of a ruffle over here, but let me know, Owen. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at how we can improve our gut health. Okay, it might not be where we want it to be, and if it isn't, that's okay. There's so many things that we can do. And because the educator in me can't help it, I am just letting you know in advance that I will be sharing a lot of information today. I don't expect you to know it all. You do have some handouts. There's a couple of new bits of information that will be on the screen that you don't already have. So I'll give you the opportunity to take a photo if you'd like, okay? Some current research that I literally just put on last night. And then at the end, I am going to quiz you. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Now, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but if you want my free, brand new Keeper cookbook, I would recommend that you pay attention and that you listen out, because a couple of you are going to get that for free at the end if you get the questions right. Does that sound like a good idea? Yeah, so are you guys going to pay attention and stay with me? Let's do it. I am going to go pretty quickly because I don't want to keep you here all night, because I could if I wanted, but let's get stuck into it. So we're going to be focusing today on rebooting our gut so that we can actually reclaim our health. Now, who knows of a guy called Hippocrates? What is he famous for? A couple of famous quotes. What's one of them that has to do with the gut? Well, absolutely. There's a few different ones he talks about, but one thing that he says is that all diseases begin in the gut. And so we know that to be true now. Science has proven it. But we know also that if all diseases begin in the gut, then what can also begin in the gut? All health. So if you're not happy, if you're not healthy, we need to look at the gut. And once we get him nice and happy, you will also be happy. So why does the gut matter? This time of year, it matters more than ever. Do you know why? Because 70% of your immune system health actually comes from your gut. Now, has anyone here got the dreaded flu yet? Anybody? You guys must come here enough and have learnt and put into practice everything that you've learned. But this is the season, isn't it? The next 2 months of the season for us to pick up whatever anyone wants to share with us. But if you don't want to share, and if you don't want to care, start taking care of your guts now. And it will protect you. It really is our first line of defense when it comes to our immune systems. We also need our gut because it literally does what we need it to do, and that is to digest food, that is to absorb food, and it's also to eliminate any waste. If one or two of those areas of our body are not working, guess what? You're going to become sick, okay? Also too, we find that if we have imbalances in our gut, that it leads to all of those symptoms that we don't like. Maybe some of us experience it right now. Bloating. Anyone here know what bloating is like? Not fun, right? What about fatigue? Isn't fatigue the big thing? Everybody has fatigue, okay? And of course, mood disorders and autoimmune conditions. So what exactly is the gut? Can I get somebody to give me what the scientific location of the gut actually is? Anybody know? That's okay, we're going to learn right now. Guess what it is not? It is not your actual stomach. That's what everyone thinks, right? We think that's where all the stuff gurgles and gets broken down, but it is not. But let's look at the actual gastrointestinal tract. It begins in our mouth, okay? It goes all the way through a whole bunch of hollow organs that twist and turn and make their way all the way down to the anus. That's what our GI tract or our gastrointestinal tract is actually called, and that's how far it goes. It's pretty long. But the gut is not all of that, okay? I don't have a gut up here in my mouth, all right? I have a gut in a certain area. The actual proper area of the gut is, well, we'll have a look at it in a second. But there are a lot of hollow organs. So your mouth is a hollow organ, your esophagus is a hollow organ, your stomach is a hollow organ. Then you start getting into your small intestine, again, another hollow organ, and then your large intestine and all the way to the anus. But then we have a couple of solid organs that make up the GI tract as well, or they work together, and that is our liver, our gallbladder, and also our pancreas. And so out of all of those, it's some of those organs there that are actually technically called the gut. It is that little section at the end of your stomach is where your gut begins, and all the way down to the anus. So there's a pretty good chunk of our GI tract, isn't it? But it's not the entire GI tract. So in our gut, specifically, this is where we have trillions and trillions of gut microbiome or bacteria. And did you know that we have 10 times more bacterial cells? Actually, 90% of us as a human being is actually bacterial, compared to just 10%, which are human cells. So has anyone ever said to you, man, you are out of this world? You can say, yeah, I'm actually bacteria, like 90% bacteria. And so that's okay. And the more bacteria we are, the better we are. So can you see that Hippocrates, without knowing the science or even having microscopes, actually got it right? 90% of our immune system is bacteria. Like 90% of us is bacteria. Only 10% is human. So does health really begin in the gut? Absolutely. And that's why we need to make sure that we take care of it and keep it nice and happy and healthy. So microbiome, what is it? Where is it? Believe it or not, our microbiome is even in our mouth, and it is throughout our entire digestive system. But most of it is housed in the actual gut. So this is basically bacteria, or sometimes we call it gut flora, but microbiome is, think of it as just all of your bacteria that live inside you, that 90%. That is what your microbiome is. And tens of trillions of microorganisms live in there, and 300 to 500 different species. So let's just say you've been in a bad way, you've had to take some antibiotics, and then you think, okay, I'm finished my antibiotics, I'm going to go and replenish my gut microbiome. I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to buy some yogurt, and let me see how many strains of bacteria I have. And when you look at it, there's one, maybe two if you're lucky, and if you pay a few extra dollars, you might get 3 strains of bacteria. Is that going to help you to repopulate those 300 to 500 different species and strains? Absolutely not. But I'm going to show you something today that's going to give you the best fighting chance of doing it, and all you have to do is eat it. Now, 2/3 of our microbiome are completely unique to each one of us. If I was able to scrape you out and scrape you out and scrape myself out and have a look at all of us, guess what? We would all look completely different under a microscope, kind of like fingerprints. And in courts of law now, people are able to use microbiome bacteria to trace it to criminals. Isn't that amazing? It's the new fingerprint of our age. It's quite incredible. And you know that our microbiome together, all of those good healthy bacteria, can actually weigh up to 1.5 kilos. Do you know how heavy that is? 1.5 of these. So if you look at your scale and it's going up, but you're doing all the good gut food and increasing kind of foods, it's okay, you're just getting a good microbiome. So don't feel bad. Now, the microbiome is important to help us not just with digestion, but do you know that it actually works with our hormones, it works with our nervous system as well, and it even works with other organ systems and our blood. So it literally is part of every process that our human bodies need to go through. Just to keep us alive and healthy and just doing normal day activities, you better have a nice healthy microbiome. Now, this microbiota actually plays a really important role in homeostasis. So we know that homeostasis is important, our bodies are always fighting to maintain that, and that's to keep us nice and happy and healthy with our fluid balance and also with our temperature balance. And believe it or not, your gut plays more to do with it than the circulatory system. That's pretty amazing that it can control those kind of areas. Now, the microbiome actually helps to break down things that we eat every single day. Protein, carbohydrates, and fats. If we aren't eating enough foods that support our microbiota, then it can't support us in digesting and even absorbing those particular macronutrients. So what happens if we don't have enough bacteria in our body? You can't digest the food or you can't absorb it. So what is the long-term effect of that? You end up having nutrient deficiencies. And what happens with nutrient deficiencies? Long-term, you end up having disease states, right? Our body needs a certain amount of nutrition to not just survive, but also thrive. So we know that our large intestine is responsible for bringing, the small intestine brings water in to the large intestine, and then that helps us to be able to absorb and break down any remaining nutrients, and it's also super important for producing vitamin K. Now, we all know how important vitamin K is, and especially when it comes to clotting, okay? Believe it or not, there are actually 4 proteins in our gut that are responsible, or it produces 4 proteins that are responsible for the clotting aspect. So if your gut is not working well, you're going to have issues with healing and wound repair, and even to stop bleeding out. So it's quite important to see how many factors our gut controls and actually plays a massive and vital role in all aspects of our health. Now, the interesting thing is with the microbiome is that it produces short-chain fatty acids. Now, a very popular one of those short-chain fatty acids, we call them scoopers, is butyrate. And butyrate is linked with longevity. So we all want to live long and happy lives, but we need to have good butyrate. We need to be able to produce that, and our bodies produce that. And it all depends on whether our little gut bacteria can actually break it down and create those scoopers. Also too, we know that our microbiome has a very unique and intelligent way of not only absorbing the nutrients and even drugs and herbs and things that we take as we drink or eat them, but as it passes through, a lot of it goes into the bloodstream, okay? And then as it comes back around again through the circulatory system, it is able, our little bacteria, to grab those munches again and say, I missed you last time, I couldn't absorb you all, but now that you've come around, I'm going to get you again. It has this ability to recycle and to reabsorb and re-salvage any nutrients that go into the bloodstream and come back around. So I just think that our gut is just incredible, and our microbiome, really, we should love it more and pay attention to it more, because the more we help it, the more it helps us. And especially this time of year, we can't really not be friends with it, can we? Now, we know that our microbiome is super responsible for 70% of our immune system. So people who are always sick, or who just kind of never got on top of things that they've had for months and months and months, that's an immune issue. And you'll probably find that it comes back to the gut in most cases, 70% of the time, it comes back to the gut. And so when I have clients who are just continually sick and under the weather, I always just ask them, do you have these symptoms? Do you have this? What do you eat? And I can tell straight away, well, your gut is not happy, okay? It doesn't matter, if you get your exercise and all this stuff, you need that, don't get me wrong. But if you are not taking care of the gut and supporting it, it can't support you, okay? So think of it as your best support system. It's also super important for metabolizing not just the temperature and also water in homeostasis, but very much so your glucose and your fat metabolism. So if you struggle with metabolizing fats, if you have a lot of digestive issues, you'll find it's because your gut is unable to do what it wants to do and actually help you digest those foods. So sometimes you can greatly improve your absorption and your nutrient digestion simply by improving your gut health alone. Okay? Now, we know also that it's important for water and electrolyte recycling. This is important too when it comes to electrolytes. I've had a couple of clients over the year, especially since being up in these hotter climates, some clients from Cairns. It's very hot and humid there, and you're always sweating and perspiring. And they've ended up in hospital a few times with really weird electrolyte imbalances. And it wasn't just a matter of them not drinking enough, they were drinking a lot, but their gut was unable to produce and reuse those electrolytes. So actually they had potassium issues, and it all came down to the gut. Once we got the gut healthy, they've never had an issue since then, and it's been years. So it's really good to know how far-reaching your microbiome goes for us to help to keep us happy. So also too, we know that the microbiome makes messages and signals our brain, and it very much so affects our mental health, okay? So when we think of our brains and our mental health and our mood, we think, how on earth could our microbiome have anything to do with it? Okay, it's so far away, it's so disassociated, and yet it's actually connected by the vagus nerve, which runs from your medulla oblongata. If I had a child, I would call it medulla, because I think it's a really cool masculine name. And it runs from there right down through our neck, all over our chest, and down into the stomach. And this amazing nerve, think of it like a two-way highway, okay? The brain can send messages all the way down to the gut, and the gut in turn can send messages right back up to the brain. And they talk to each other, and it's very quick, within moments. So it's going to send messages like from the stomach up to the brain, I'm full, don't send me down anything else in that pipeline. And so the brain will say, you shut your goblet, and then you stop. Well, hopefully. And then other messages will happen as well. So it'll say things like, hey, we need you to, drop some more glucose here, okay? We're having a low, we're having a hypo. And so the brain will do that. So they actually work together. It's quite incredible, that two-way highway that happens. But the interesting thing is that the bacterial cells and the nerves are playing with our human cells, and they like to travel along this highway. So every time I have somebody with mood disorders or any kind of mental health issues, I always look at the gut. And guess what? It's always a massive contributing factor to their health and their well-being. So I can't underestimate enough how much it really helps. So we all know that the brain, that the gut is actually now called your second brain, and for that purpose, okay? So we know that it's through this gut-brain axis, but what it's really called, the second brain, is technically our enteric nervous system, okay? And got some beautiful background music. So it's actually very important to regulate your mood, but also even your digestive system. And if you have any kind of irritable bowel syndrome or problems like that, I mean, you've just got to think of that fight or flight hormone when we have that, or if you've got to get up and publicly speak, if you don't love it like me, I could do this all day. But if you get scared speaking in front of people, what do you want to do before you get up? Run to the toilet and do a little, right? And that's because your gut is getting butterflies, it's getting nervous, it's getting anxiety, and so straight away it sends it to the brain. The brain's like, oh, something bad is going to happen, there's some danger, quick, empty your load so we can run. And so that's what happens. But really, it's quite incredible. But the two can play, we can help the two. So if you want to feel happier, if you want to feel healthier, we need to make sure that our little gut is taken care of. So what we have found out is that you can see here this beautiful vagus nerve running from that brainstem all the way down to the gut. If anything is not quite right, so if you have issues with biofilm, which we'll touch on a little bit in a moment, if you have issues with like bad diet or lack of sleep, or you have infection that's broken into your immune system, you are going to feel awful, aren't you? I don't know anyone who's sick and under the weather with a cold or a flu and they're like, yeah, I feel top of the world today, right? It's not a thing. Because when the one suffers, the other one suffers as well. They're all connected. And so it's very important if you want to feel better, and really life is about living your best, isn't it? It's about vitality, it's about abundance, and we can get there, we can experience it if we know how to take care of ourselves. And the one thing that we really should put the most attention into is our gut health. So let's look at these amazing neurotransmitters that are in our gut and also in our brain. and they work together. So neurotransmitters are not the actual messages, but what they do is they send messages. Okay, do you remember back in the war they used to have messages, and they'd get a message, and then they were the ones that had to run through all of the, wartime and all of the fear and all the stress and get that message to where it needed to go. Well, that's what neurotransmitters are. Now, the amazing thing is that up until just about 6 years ago, we used to think, because we just didn't have the science, that all of your neurotransmitters that transmit those feel-good hormones were made in the brain. We used to think that, because think of the word neuro, brain, transmitter, sender of messages, right? So we thought that, all neurotransmitters are just made in the brain. But now we know that that is not the case. And in fact, the incredible thing is that 50% of dopamine, which we know is that feel-good hormone, okay, so it's coming back to mood again, to mental health even, it is actually made in your gut. 50%. Now that's kind of crazy. 90% though of serotonin is made in the gut. We never thought it was ever made in the gut. Isn't that incredible? So does our mood, is our mood greatly affected by our gut health? Well, 90% of it is, and so is 50% of it. So if you add that up, that's over 100%. But really, you can't go wrong with taking care of your good gut and making sure that it's healthy, because it's literally going to be sending feel-good hormones to you or not. And so I can't underestimate how important it is. So let's have a look at dopamine. We know that it is the one that helps to regulate physical bodily functions, of course, so it regulates things like pleasure and reward and mood, but also too, it helps with executive function, so you actually putting a thought into action, but it very much helps with memory, digestion and blood flow. Okay, so we know that it does those physical things, but it also makes you feel good. Okay, so do we need to have a lot of dopamine? Yeah, we need a lot of dopamine, right? Okay, so how much dopamine is made in our gut? Can you remember? 50% of you feeling good has to do with your healthy gut. That's pretty amazing, right? Okay, what about serotonin? How much of this is made in the gut? 90% of serotonin, which also helps you not to feel depressed, helps you not to have anxiety. Anxiety is the thing. And that anxiety song, don't you any of you start singing that, because I can't get that out of my head once someone does. That song gives me anxiety, right? But anxiety is a thing that it seems like everybody suffers with these days. It doesn't help that our lives are super crazy and we make them even crazier. But you know what, my friends? If we want to feel 90% less depressed, if we want to feel 90% less anxious, then we need to make sure that our gut is healthy, because that's where it's getting produced, okay? We know too that these two neurotransmitters are being made in the gut, and they affect our brain and body. So let's have a look at some important probiotics that have actually been linked with your mood. So if a client comes to me with anxiety or depression or any kind of mood disorder, I straight away get them onto these. These are the top probiotics at the moment that have been researched to help with mental health issues like depression and anxiety. So Lactobacillus acidophilus and also Bifidobacterium longum. And I'm just going to call the next one FP because it's too hard to say. So this has been linked with anti-inflammatory benefits. And we know that inflammation affects mood. Inflammation in our gut, when our nerves in our gut are inflamed, they send those messages through the vagus nerve to our brain and it gets inflamed. How crazy is that? I remember as a child, I used to always say, I've got a cast iron gut, nothing can hurt me, and it's true. I could eat anything, I could go to Bali and do all that stuff, never had an issue, right? But I like to think it's because of my belly, my good gut health. But you know what? It's actually anything that affects you, whether you have a symptom or a reaction, it doesn't really matter. If you're causing inflammation in your gut, you're causing inflammation in your brain, and that affects your mental health and your mood. So inflammation, it's dodgy, we don't want it, it's part of every disease process, it's the beginning of all diseases. We have to make sure we stay away from that. But these strains particularly influence our brain chemistry, and tryptophan also metabolizes and influences how serotonin, Oh, that's telling me to put my car off charge. And also, it affects our mood and our sleep. So can you see how our gut literally affects how we sleep, right? It's quite incredible. Now, what exactly is this dysbiosis? This is something we don't want. Does it sound bad? It really is. Dysbiosis is when our bodies that are full of colonies of bacteria, often harmless, okay, but if they get out of balance and the bad guys take rulership, it's kind of like the governments, you know, when a bad one gets in, it's like it's bad for everybody involved, right? So same type of deal with our gut microbiome. If the bad guys rule, everything else suffers, every organ system, even your mental health and your mood. So we can't always stop some pathogenic bacteria from coming in because it can come through toxins, it can come through environmental things, right? You might eat something that has been contaminated, there's things like that. But overall, we need to make sure that we are keeping a symbiotic, beautiful equilibrium with our good bacteria ruling the show. That's really what the aim is, okay? But when it does get bad, we have this thing called dysbiosis, and that's where everything kind of breaks down, and as we can see, all the things that your gut is responsible for, absorption, nutrition, hormone balancing, sending messages, all of that stuff goes skew with as well. And things just start to rock. Your whole life sort of goes upside down a bit. Now, dysbiosis can be unnoticed, believe it or not. It's not like you are always going to know. And for those of us who have the cast iron stomachs, we don't even know if we are causing dysbiosis to ourselves because we don't get the bloats, we don't get the gas or flatulence, and we don't get, you know, the diarrhea and the IBS type symptoms. So just because we don't notice it doesn't mean we're not causing damage, okay? So short term, it can be something that is not even noticed, or it could be just like a stomach ache or something quite mild. But long term, if you don't treat the symptoms of dysbiosis, or just make sure that your gut is nice and happy and healthy, you're going to end up with an innumerable number of diseases and in-health conditions as a result. So long term, it causes inflammation, and that always causes leaky gut, okay? So diet is one of the big causative factors, of course, because a lot of things can come in through our gut, through our mouth, and it's going to go right through our gut, and it can cause dysbiosis, okay? What they're finding now, which is very opposite to what a lot of people are advocating, that high protein is actually detrimental to your microbiome. So having too much protein, more than 0.8 grams of protein per body kilogram, it's too much. Our body is actually not able to metabolize it and utilize it, and it affects and destroys good bacteria. Who would have thought? And you know that Dr. Walter Longo, who is the professor of longevity, okay, he's the who's who of longevity, he has found that anything over the maximum 1 gram of protein per 1 kilogram of weight, you're going to be reducing your longevity. Like, that's crazy, right? And why? Because it reduces your gut health. And gut, if you have a healthy gut, you have longevity. If you don't, you don't, okay? Of course, chemical consumption, so this can be anything from pesticides or anything, you know, like environmental toxins, all of that kind of stuff, okay, is going to cause dysbiosis. Drinking more than 2 alcoholic drinks a day, and guess what an alcoholic drink is considered? More than 2 lots of 30 mils, which is 60 mils total per day. So if you're having more than that, you're causing yourself gut issues. Not a good idea. Medications. We all know antibiotics, he's the best one at destroying and wiping out our gut microbiome. In fact, 1 dose of antibiotic will actually destroy up to 90% of your microbiota. 90%. And guess how long it takes you, just by eating your cultured foods, to rebuild that and get it back healthy? What do you reckon? Have a guess? Nobody's wrong. 2 years. No. Yes, it's 2 years. 2 years, not 2 weeks, not 2 days, not 2 months. 2 years to actually build back just through diet alone. So can you see why high strength, multi-strain probiotics are super important to take once you finish your antibiotics?
What if you never can finish the corticosteroids and immunosuppressants?
Then you've got to just live on top of your gut health more than anything else to try and counteract it. And that's the other thing, because it's not just that, it is the corticosteroids and the immunosuppressants. But the good thing is you can still keep on top of it, just negate it by being super, super healthy in that area. Now, what about dental hygiene? We know that certain bacteria in our mouth, if you are found to have that, you can end up with heart disease. It's linked to heart disease. Mouth bacteria. Does that sound like that's connected? Well, it is, okay? In fact, that we all know about certain bacteria that cause gingivitis, and we know that there are certain bacteria that cause inflammation. But the crazy thing is now is that people are finding that there are certain bacteria that live in our mouths, and it's only some people where it causes continual cavities and also staining around the edges of the teeth. I don't know if anyone knows about that. And if you have iron in your diet, whether it's plant-based or animal-based, it doesn't really matter, you'll end up with really severe staining. So yeah, it's literally caused by one little munchkin that lives in your mouth. Okay, high levels of stress, so high cortisol. Okay, if you suffer with that, you really need to speak to your naturopath and get yourself some good support, because cortisol is really the root to most diseases these days. Okay, high cortisol is awful. You can actually get tested from your GP and you can find out if you have it. But I think most of us know that we all struggle with it, yeah? If you're just a person who's alive today, anyone here? That's all of us, okay? So we all need to support those with adaptogenic support. Unprotected sex, it's something that we don't really discuss or think of when it comes to our gut microbiome. Yeah, they're pretty close in proximity, but believe it or not, our entire digestive system, and even for women and for men, we have a particular microbiota, even in those areas. So for women especially, we have our own special bacteria. So it's usually the Crispatus particular strain. And if you are having unprotected sex with different partners, you're grabbing some of their bacteria, it's wrecking your bacteria, and guess what? You end up with a whole bunch of issues. So another good reason, to be very careful with that. And also to stress, anxiety, but circadian disruption. If you are not sleeping, if you struggle sleeping, your circadian is out of whack. So what is circadian rhythm? Basically when the sun goes down, you should be going down. In a perfect world, right? If you speak to Brian Johnson, he'll tell you the same thing. Because actually sleep, they're finding, is more important these days than even diet. Okay, having a good night's sleep can actually undo a lot of your bad, I'm not advocating this, but a lot of your bad dietary choices. Having a good night's sleep can actually help. Sleep is so super important, and if you're not having it, not only are you going to have a lower lifespan, but you're going to have a terrible life, with disease. It really is one of the most important things. So what you can do because I'll go into more detail in a minute, but if you're not getting early morning sunlight, okay, so just waking up, going for your walk, or even just having the windows open, getting some sun in on you, you're not going to be able to sleep well, but it's actually going to affect your gut health. So it's all interconnected and all linked. Okay, so what are some symptoms of dysbiosis? It's the obvious things, those digestive issues, those autoimmune issues, which a lot of people don't realise are linked. Of course, it's things as simple as bloating, gas, a bit of IBS type symptoms, but it goes as far as full-blown autoimmune diseases, okay? And this, when you have symptoms of dysbiosis, you're going to notice them in most people by not being able to break down or digest your food properly, feeling like food's hanging around for quite a long time in your stomach. So if you've eaten a meal and you still feel like two hours later that it's still really hanging there, that's a sign that you're not able to digest your food properly. Now there are a few different causes of this. You've got the stomach acid issue. If you have low stomach acid, that could be a contributing factor. Not enough enzymes in the stomach, hormonal issues. But really, what it mostly comes down to is that your gut is not happy and healthy, okay? Toxicity causes the cells of your gut lining to become inflamed, and they cause a lot of these issues to happen. So symptoms that are so far ranging from everything from halitosis, so a bit of stinky breath, to having nausea, constipation, difficulty even going to the toilet, whether it's number one or number two, any kind of itching or bloating, even chest pain, actually can be a sign of dysbiosis, which is quite incredible. Fatigue, brain fog, like Charmaine was saying, the mental health issues, IBS, IBD, all of your yeast type of infections and bacterial overgrowth, okay, that's very much a thing. But check this out, celiac disease. Every single person I have who has celiac always have major gut issues, because it starts with major gut issues. You're never going to get celiac if you, well, unless it's severely, you know, an inherited thing and a weakness. But in most cases, it's because you have not taken care of your gut. Not that we know it, most of it happens, you know, throughout our whole childhood. We don't have a choice on what we eat or how we eat. But that is going to always lead to celiac, okay? So the other thing is too, leaky gut, of course. Diabetes and obesity are very much affected by your microbiota, and PCOS. Okay, so you can see how far-ranging, even eczema, liver disease, heart failure. Our gut bacteria very much affects our heart, just like the bacteria in our mouth affects our heart. So it's all effective for all aspects of our being. Also dementia, Parkinson's, and cancer in the colon or rectum, always associated with bad microbiome. So what are symptoms of this leaky gut? Well, leaky gut only happens when we've had inflammation for quite a while. It doesn't just come overnight. It's going to take a good time for it to occur. But if we continue to cause inflammation in our gut, then we're going to end up with leaky gut or gut permeability, okay? And it can lead, and it often does, to autoimmunity. So things such as autoimmune thyroid disease, Graves' disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and the list goes on, okay? So all of these are going to be exacerbated and oftentimes caused because your gut had holes in it, okay? The lining of your gut wasn't quite able to stop these things coming in and causing your immune system to attack itself.
That's right.
So let's look at how food intolerances can play a massive role when it comes to causing autoimmune issues. Now, food intolerances are simply a range of different adverse reactions that can happen when we eat something that doesn't quite agree with us. Now, you know how some people might be fine eating legumes, but other people feel like they're going to die if they have them, right? It's not that the legume is bad, because he's a good little guy. It's just that there's something not quite right with us, okay? We can't utilize, absorb it, and take care of it. So we have an intolerance to it. A lot of us today, because of the way food has been changed and manipulated, we can't digest certain food products that, you know what, 100 years ago, not a problem. Okay, I'm going to bring up the main culprit we all know, Mr. Gluten. Mr. Gluten is not the same gluten that we even had back in the day. And every celiac patient that I have who is Italian, I can tell you that they usually, it happens after, like the first generation after the immigrant family have moved in, okay? Because they've changed from the amazing true gluten over there that they can still go back on holidays and eat with no problems. But when they come here, it's a whole different ballgame. Because the gluten has been manufactured and produced in a way that it just produces a higher gluten, but that's not what our body can handle. It's not the way nature intended, okay? So that's one of them, but of course there's a whole bunch of others as well. We can talk about lactose and all these other things. But basically these cause, you know, temporary side effects or issues with our digestive system, a bit of gas, a bit of bloating, you know, maybe visiting the toilet a little bit too much, and maybe sometimes having eye bulging experiences on the toilet. It can go the other way as well, right? But you can find out if you have these food intolerances. Why would it be good to know? Because if you can get tested, and if you're someone like me who has a cast iron gut who just can eat anything and doesn't have any issues, it doesn't mean that I'm not hurting myself. But you can do a test, it's called the 4-pillar gut health test. And you can check to see what things you're intolerant to. Now, it doesn't mean that you're allergic to them, that's a whole other ballgame. So people who have celiac are like, well, you can have intolerance to gluten, where you just have all those reactions, but then you can have celiac, where you're going to end up in hospital if you have too much, okay? So it can range your intolerances in so many different ways. But let's have a look at some of the main things. I've got to talk about lactose real quickly because it's just really weird that dairy has ever been considered a food for humans. There's no other mammal on that whole planet who goes and suckles from another mammal species. Kind of weird, right? And plus, once we become adults and we grow a few little chompers, there's no need for even having milk as human beings. So it's just very, very weird. As a naturopath, dairy is like the fiend of most health conditions. It has been linked to everything from diabetes to breast and cervical cancer and prostate cancer. It's like the main contributor. So I don't recommend it to anybody. There's so many amazing alternatives these days. And for 90% of the world's population, who are actually not white Europeans, they can't even digest it. They don't even have the enzyme in their gut to be able to digest and utilize food from cows. So it doesn't matter if it's A2 or A1, doesn't matter. It's still not really human food. So MSG, I've got to touch on it. I know that Uncle Roger says you can't make fried rice without MSG. Well, you can if you want to have a healthy gut, okay? I promise, and it still tastes as good. But you will find that 621, that little number, and 625, if you look on most foods that have heaps and heaps of flavour, you've got MSG in those. Everything from chips to sauces, to pretty much anything that comes in a packet with like 1 billion ingredients that you need a degree to be able to read, that is something that you probably don't want. Your gut will thank you for just saying no, I promise. So stay away from a lot of those things. Now we do have natural MSG in certain foods that are fine for you to have, okay, because they're not super concentrated. So mushrooms actually have MSG, but super small amounts, not going to cause any gut dysbiosis or intolerances. Because
Can I just ask, are you saying that all seaweed has some monoacidic glutamate?
no, so I'm saying naturally some food has it. So seaweed that you eat naturally has MSG in it. It's not a refined thing that people have put on. And that's fine, it's not a problem because the amounts are so minute, it's not going to cause any issues. Same with mushrooms and even tomatoes, okay? So not so much a problem. But when you have concentrated MSG that comes in a white powder, and it's added to things that does make everything amazing and tasty because it literally affects our nerve endings. You know those nerve endings in your stomach? And so it gets all weird and it's like, oh, I feel hungover, and it sends a message to the brain, and the brain's like, oh, this is so good, I love it, right? It has a bit of a high, but it's a bad high because it's actually going to affect your whole health. So look, sometimes when I'm overseas, because I'm traveling quite a lot, I just know what's in some of the food that I'm eating and I can't avoid it because we can't translate and get it out. So yeah, you can't avoid here and there, but it's if you're doing it all the time, okay, it's going to really affect those nerve endings in your gut. Of course, we know also that amines are quite, can cause a lot of intolerances in people, especially if your gut is not happy and healthy, and also salicylates. So these are present in a lot of just natural foods, okay? It's not that there's a problem with the food, as I said, it's a problem with our guts not being able to utilise and to deal with it, okay? So other things too are like toxins, which we know comes from so many different channels these days. It's kind of hard to like be toxin free completely, especially if you just live in this world, all right? But we can do the best that we can by, trying to eliminate them as much as possible. And of course, gut irritants. Now this is one that is also similar to MSG, but it's not MSG, right? But when we have certain irritants, which you'll be finding quite surprising this list, caffeine and tea, it's the caffeine actual molecule that irritates our gut and causes inflammation. So I know that these days people are saying, oh, you can have like 1 cup of coffee, it's all dependent on when you have it and how you have it. It's not really when you're a naturopath. When you're a naturopath, like, I love your guts more than you do. I'd love you to love your guts as much as I do. Don't do it, because I know the long-term effects. And in fact, if you're somebody who actually suffers with anxiety, coffee it's one of the big causative factors of anxiety. So something that we don't want. Remember, it's inflaming our gut, so it's inflaming our brain, it's affecting our mood, okay? But other things too. So pepper, white, green, red, doesn't really matter. All peppers are going to cause an inflammation in the gut linings. Chai, why? Because in chai, it's a combo of different irritating herbs. You've got cloves, you've got cinnamon, and you've got pepper, okay? So again, cinnamon itself as well. Chilies, but I will just say that cayenne pepper is okay. Cayenne pepper, they've actually done tests on. It's a stimulant, but it's not an irritant. And that's actually very different on how our gut is able to utilise it. So you can have cayenne pepper if you like hot stuff, you go to town. And actually now, I don't know if it's everywhere, but even at like Coles and Woolies, you can buy actual cayenne pepper fresh chilies. So if you like your hot stuff, you go to town with that. They've actually done research where they gave cayenne pepper in super high heat tolerant doses to people with IBS. Now, we're talking already inflammation city, okay? And stomach ulcers, and they gave it to these groups, and you would think that it would make the problem worse, but guess what? It actually stimulated blood flow to all of those owie bits, and it actually healed it. So that's why cayenne pepper is good and safe, and that's why other chilies are best to stay away, because any other chili, like your habaneros, jalapenos, all of those, they actually will cause your nerve endings to have a bit of a fry and a sizzle. whereas cayenne pepper doesn't even touch the sides. It's really good, isn't it? Okay, so we know too that just food intolerances can cause autoimmune responses. So let's look at this autoimmune link. When inflammation eventually leads to leaky gut, it affects your absorption, and a lot of things end up in your bloodstream that were never meant to go there, okay? So I remember as a child I was always told, don't you cross that highway, Candice. And what did I want to do? I wanted to cross the highway. But it's the same thing with our guts. Our guts actually say to all of the gut lining, there's a whole bunch of cells, they all work together, and they say, hey, let's not let anyone cross us, okay? We are the defense of this body, and we're going to do everything we can to stop anything coming through and hurting and getting into the bloodstream. But when we have inflammation caused by all those different irritants and things like that, poor diet, toxin overload, all that sort of stuff, our little enterocytes, the one layer of gut lining, can no longer hold up the fort, and bits of food that we eat goes in past it into the bloodstream, and that's when it all happens. That's when autoimmunity happens. So these endotoxins and food particles slip into the bloodstream and they start to cause major issues. So let's talk about molecular mimicry, okay? So this is where the body, when you are having food that is getting through into the bloodstream, because that's not supposed to happen, when that gets into the bloodstream, your body goes, oh my goodness, quick, high alert. There's something in here that we have an invader. Let's go get him, okay? So the whole immune system gets together and they look around and they find whatever that is, that protein, that toxin, that bacteria, that virus, whatever, and they start attacking it, right? That's awesome. That's what our immune system's for. But the problem is when we keep doing it all the time, there are certain molecular structures of things that we eat and drink that look the same to certain areas in our body, certain organs. So did you know that the protein gliadin from gluten looks exactly the same to our immune system as our thyroid tissue? So when we're eating gluten and it keeps going in because it's causing inflammation, it's leaking through and going into the bloodstream, the immune system's like, it's okay guys, let's go kill this little gliadin, we know what he looks like, let's get him, and they all go and they do that. But then one of the little enterocytes, or one of the immune system will come up to the thyroid and go, oh, I found some more gluten, let's get him. And they all start attacking your thyroid. Because to the body it looks the same, the proteins are the same. So that's why gluten, if you are somebody with any kind of thyroid issue, you better be gluten-free, okay? Or you're killing yourself, you're literally killing yourself. But we know too that actually having gliadin in the system increases TSH. So if you're starting to get weird blood work back from your doctor, go and see a naturopath who can actually help you with your dietary changes, okay? Now we know too that even things that look and seem very disconnected, like skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, all this kind of stuff, they're actually very much affected by this autoimmune link, and it all comes back to that irritated and inflamed gut system. So leaky gut syndrome or gut permeability causes the immune system to respond to any kind of foreign particle. It might even be a good normal particle, but it just wasn't meant to ever go into the bloodstream. So it's going to go and start attacking that, and you're going to feel like there's a war going on inside you. And sometimes you won't feel it, but it doesn't mean that it's not. So studies show that leaky gut syndrome can cause and exacerbate autoimmune diseases. So all people who come to me with any kind of autoimmune issue, we start with the gut. Everything else can wait. The gut is #1 priority. So let's have a look at our little healthy gut, okay? Our gut only has one layer of cells for protection. One layer. How many layers? One layer. Now, do you know how big a cell is? You can't see it unless you have a super, super strong microscope. So one tiny cell layer is protecting everything from the outside world to you ending up with an autoimmune issue. Leaky gut happens when this one layer of cells becomes weak and they can't stand together like good soldiers blocking the way, and all of a sudden, whoops, there's a little gap and something slips through. So it affects all aspects of our health, our immune system, okay, our hormones, our brain and mood, our skin and our microbiome. So let's have a look at these guys on the left-hand side. These are normal tight junctions, and the guys that are holding them together are called enterocytes. What are they called? Think of the word enter sites, or it's the site where all these awful toxins and things like that want to enter, right? They want to get through there and come down into the bloodstream. So when you have a nice, healthy microbiome, and all of those little one layer of cells are standing there, standing on guard, nothing's getting through. Okay, it's happy days for everybody involved. But if you are not supporting your gut, those little guys can't stand together, they go apart, they cause a leak. Okay, so this is starts with inflammation. And then anything that you're eating, anything that is going inside is going to end up in your bloodstream. And that's how we have all sorts of issues. So let's have a look at some of these causes of leaky gut. Of course, diet comes into it. Sugar is a huge culprit. And in fact, while we're talking about that, let's talk really quickly about biofilm, okay? So biofilm is where when the bad guys are in government and they're ruling the show, they decide to create a special slimy fortress, and it's called biofilm. They basically make it themselves and they cover themselves with biofilm, and they hide from our immune system. So the immune system can't even go, oh, there's some dodgy bacteria down there, let's go kill him. They are actually hidden and shielded. That's what biofilm does. And biofilm, you've got to deal with biofilm before you can even repopulate your good bacteria. Because every time you put more good bacteria there, he can't even stay there because there's all this slime there that's stopping him live and stay. Only the bad guys are living underneath a big sheet and a big shield. So there are ways that we can kill biofilm. The best way, which I love to do, is just eat heaps and heaps of raw garlic. Anyone with me on that one? Yes, some of you will like my dictator. One of them is like bringing it strong. But honestly, you can't cook the garlic because it's not going to kill the biofilm. But that's one of your #1 defenses in killing biofilm. If you haven't cooked garlic, it's not going to do it. Sorry. Okay? So we need to kill the biofilm and then we can deal with that. But biofilm loves sugar. It's its #1 source. And that's what it uses to make its big slimy shield. Okay? So if you want to destroy that, I mean sugar-free, I think we all know how important that is, okay? Of course, artificial sweeteners, all those hydrogenated and trans fats are pretty dodgy, and chemicals, preservatives, high fructose corn syrup. That is such a bad invention. It's almost like chemical warfare to me as a naturopath. Like, oh, it's just like a bullet to your gut, okay? SIBO, small intestinal bowel overgrowth. So that's when you get an unusual amount of bacteria growing in your small intestine and that shouldn't be there. You're going to end up with all of those kind of issues, okay? And then, of course, stress. So I want you to think of your gut, your little enterocytes, as this first, just one layer, very thin net. Okay, that's your enterocytes. Imagine that our entire digestive system has this net in it. It's our like little protective glove. Okay, but when we have any of these things, and of course stress, high cortisol, it literally rips a hole through your gut. It's going to be like the ball. So all of these bad things are like the ball. The ball is actually going to be all of the things that wants to get into your body. So like pathogens and parasites and viruses and all of those kind of bad things. You don't want those. And the ball is what those things are. But if you have poor diet and all these other issues, the poor diet and all of that are like the scissors that cut the hole in that net. And that's what opens up your body to then be able to have all those dodgy pathogenic toxins and endotoxins entering into the bloodstream. And so over time you can see it causes a hole and then anything can get through. Anything and everything. And trust me, it will. So other things that can cause it, antibiotics of course, we know that literally causes holes in those enterocytes. Short-term use, like sometimes you need it, not a big deal, but just get onto some really, really high-strain, multi-strained, super, super high doses of probiotics. So speak to a naturopath who can get you on the right ones. And then of course, infections, you're going to get everything that comes around. This time of year, there's so many things going around. Even just coming to these events, you're kind of like, you better be on guard, right? So I'm good, I'm protected, and you will be too after we have our taste test, don't worry, all right? So bacteria, of course, is bad. H. pylori is a big one that can, really blast holes through your gut lining. Parasites, okay, you can pick them up from a shopping trolley, all right? They're everywhere. You probably have a couple of extra little invaders living in there. Easy to kill though, just speak to your naturopath. Yeast, of course, viruses. Now, synthetic hormones also rip holes through your gut microbiota, and acid blocking meds, okay, and then just having a poor microbiome in general. So how do we treat this? All right. Well, we have to treat it in a very multi-directional way. Now, taking care of our gut health is not just all about what you eat, although it very much has to do with what we eat. That's the foundation. But there are so many other factors that are non-food related that affect our microbiome. But we need to support that because our gut bacteria will only be able to feed on what you give it. So if you're giving it fuel that supports the dodgy guys in government, you're never going to be able to repopulate your good bacteria, okay? So you've got to starve the bad boys out and feed the good guys. It's really that simple. So we need to look at some important ways to do this. Eating-wise, I think some of you have seen me for a few times now. I'm a huge advocate of greens. Greens. I don't care how you get them in. Juice them, steam them, eat them, roll in it, walk on it. I don't really care. Just get it into you, my friends, because honestly, greens are like giving your blood a whole new transfusion. Okay, it's actually going to clean and cleanse, but it also, your guts love greens. The more greens you can have, the better. So the high top ones, I'm going to say it. I know you think it's a swear word, but kale, yes, it is a superfood. I don't care if you don't like it. Get it into you any way you can. In fact, there's so many ways that you can. But any green, Asian greens, the whole lot. Prebiotics are super important. We'll look at that in more detail in a moment. Probiotics and small biotics. And then
Is there a good time to take the probiotics?
Anytime, empty stomach's best. Yeah, so empty stomach, it's good if you either do it first thing in the morning, way before you eat, or at the end of the day, but you can't really overdose, but it does get digested, more of it will be absorbed if you're having it on its own. Probiotics, foods that are rich in B vitamins and of course high fibre. And stewed apples in particular are one of your gut's favourite type of food for treating dysbiotic symptoms. All of your pumpkins, sweet potatoes, and we're going to talk about one of my favourite foods soon, but I'll hold off till that. Bananas, zucchini, broccoli, carrots, flaxseed gel, and chia gel, but more so flaxseed than anything else. Coconut yogurt, any kind of yogurt, sprouted seeds, and blueberries. But let's have a look at some things we need to stay away that really are contributing factors in the dietary world. So processed meats are really the worst for our gut microbiome. First of all, they're full of a whole bunch of other stimulants and irritants. And just the fact that they're high in amines and they're high in acid and all these other sort of metabolites, they're not good. Particularly deli meat, like your salamis and your hams and all that kind of stuff, not good for the gut microbiome. Refined carbohydrates. So if you have refined carbohydrates here and there, that's cool, your gut can handle it, but don't you be doing that every meal, okay? It can't live on refined carbohydrates. That's going to feed the bad government of bacteria. If you have really, really severe dysbiosis, which you'll know if you've been tested by a naturopath, then even sometimes we even get you to go off certain foods, okay? Even good foods that are usually great for your gut, such as apples and bananas and grapes. And then of course dairy, I won't even go into that. High sugar foods in any way, shape or form. You'll notice that maple syrup's there. Maple syrup's one of the better out of all of them. But I know some people who go, I'm sugar-free, but they'll have like a litre of maple syrup a day. You can handle a few tablespoons, my friends, but seriously, like, let's not go that far, because even the good stuff we can overdose, and that's not good either, yeah? Okay, let's look at prebiotics. Prebiotics support our gut microbiome. Basically what they are is it's an indigestible food that as you eat it goes through your digestive system into the gut, and it creates a slimy, sticky gel in your gut lining. It's different to biofilm. It actually helps to make it sticky so that when you're eating your good high probiotic foods such as your kefir and your sauerkraut and kimchi and all those goodies, as those probiotics are traveling through the system, they're coming through the gut, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, look at this, stick, and they stick onto your prebiotic matrix. And then it's like, I could live here. Why don't I? I'm just going to hang around. So they stay there, and as they're there, they're like, I wonder what this tastes like. And they start eating this prebiotic matrix. And it's like, this is my favorite food on the planet. So then it eats, and then it poops out more bacteria. And that's how we end up repopulating our good bacteria. So we need prebiotics because you can pay a lot of money for some really good, amazing probiotics. But if you don't have prebiotics in there first, you're pooping out expensive cash. So, it's food that feeds our bacteria, it's food that sticks our bacteria in our gut, and it's food that will actually help to repopulate our gut microbiome. So indirectly, it affects killing pathogens, okay, making that substrate, the sticky environment for our good bacteria to grab onto and have a nibble, and our scooper production. So remember before we were talking about butyrates. So this is going to help to make those little epithelial cells nice and strong, and also those enterocytes. And in a direct way, it helps our epithelial cells. So 2 ways you're helping that gut line be nice and strong and protective. And of course, it's helping your immune system. So should we be having prebiotics every day? Yes. And the more you can have, the better. You can't overdose on having prebiotics. Now, there are a whole bunch of different types of prebiotics: beta-glucans, fructooligosaccharides, galacto-oligosaccharides, right? But if we keep it really, really simple, I'm not a fan of this one, but it actually is a good prebiotic, but don't recommend it for the majority of people. But raw leeks, raw onions, raw garlic are all prebiotic. Okay, very slightly blanched raw asparagus. And then of course you can see all these other guys as well. Cayenne pepper is a prebiotic. But yeah, there are so many. My favourite way to eat my probiotics is with prebiotics. So we're going to make a pre and probiotic dip in a few moments. But you can see that there's so many. They come in the form of fruit, and they come in the form of vegetables and nuts and also cereals. But what I actually recommend is that you do the most fun and exciting way to have a prebiotic, and that's having resistant starch. So of course artichokes as well. So let's look at resistant starch. My favourite food on the planet, I think I'm Irish somehow, is potatoes. And guess what? It's a health food. You can quote me on that. Because potato has only had a bad rap because what we do is we get an amazing food that is the most satiating food on the entire planet. On the satiation scale, it's way up here. And all other foods are down here. It's like there's no comparison. But it's what we do to those awesome potatoes that give it the bad rap. We fry it. We add a billion bits of fat and oils and butters and creams. And that's what is bad for you. But if you have potatoes that you boil, you let them cool for 24 hours, and then you eat them any way you want. You can warm them up again, you can eat them as a cold potato salad. My favourite way to eat prebiotic potatoes is having them boiled, waiting for a day, cutting them into slices long ways, putting it in my air fryer, and then once it's all cooked and like crusty, I have it with my smashed avocado on top, and I have potato toast. Okay, but if you love wedges, whatever suits your fancy, just don't go and put bad fat on it. Don't go and add oils and fats and all dairy and all that sort of stuff, okay? So you can also cook and cool legumes and also grains, and they're all going to be high prebiotic, but the highest of them all is potato. Now, how does resistant starch work? Resistant starch, when you cook and cool a high starch food, so particularly let's look at white potatoes, it becomes very gluggy and the molecular structure changes. You ever overcooked a potato and then you leave it out and it kind of goes furry looking, like it looks different, right? So that has gone into a change. It's become resistant starch. And up to 15% of that boiled potato is now resistant starch, which means that when you eat it and you have it any way you like potatoes, it goes down, it totally bypasses all digestive system and gets into the large intestine, and then your gut can actually digest it, and it creates huge amounts of butyrates, okay? And so resistant starch, if you did the same thing to rice, so that's awesome, but you only get about 7% resistant starch. Out of all foods that you can change into a resistant starch, potatoes are the highest. So if you're gonna eat potatoes, do that, because guess what? It lowers your spike of insulin. It actually, we know potatoes are the best food to have every day, especially if you're watching your weight, because it makes you feel so full. But it's an amazing weight loss food, it's an amazing gut health food, it's amazing butyrate producing food. So start having your potatoes, boil them, and your rice and your grains, and even your legumes, but legumes again, they'll only have up to like 6% resistant starch once you've cooked and cooled them. So start doing that. What I do every week as a habit is I just boil like 6 or 7 kilos of potatoes, and I'll eat them all myself. Yep. And in fact, you know, some people say like, aren't you going to get fat for your potatoes? Do you know that you can literally live off potatoes? And if you eat just potatoes, you're going to lose like 20 kilos in 3 weeks. Like potatoes have never been the enemy. It's because we just clothe them with the really bad stuff.
How long do you boil them for?
Until they're fully cooked through and you see there's a slight change in that texture. Yeah, so they have to not have one bit of crunch left at all, okay? So really overboil them to the point where they start to fall apart. That's perfect. let them, strain them, keep them to cool. I just chuck them straight in the fridge, and all week I'll just grab a potato here, grab a potato there. I'll probably eat like 2-3 potatoes a day. No problem at all.
Do you peel them or?
No, I don't.
Good.
Yeah, no, you want the extra fibre, right? All the goodness is right there. So yeah, don't be doing that. But you know what, it does work as well with sweet potatoes and even pumpkin, but super, super small amounts. So you'll only get like 2% resistant starch instead of white potato being 15%. Was there a quick question over here?
Saying how long do the potatoes keep in the fridge?
Oh, 5 days.
Okay.
Yep, 5 days, no problem. Just make sure that they're not sitting in any water. So fully, I just put one in colanders, let them drip dry, for a couple of hours, then I'll chuck them in the fridge, and happy days. And I actually love just like smashing them, putting some garlic salt and like garlic powder and whatever I've got. I'm a herb girl, so every herb under the sun. Chuck it into my air fryer, no oil, okay, no nasties. Bring it back out, and just that alone, I put my smashed avocado, I put my dips, I put whatever, and I just, to me that is like the best. Anyway, I'm never hungry because like I make sure I satisfy myself. Yes?
Sweet potato?
Yeah, it does. Just super, super small amount of resistant starch, but I would recommend any starches always cook and cool, because you're always going to give yourself that little bit better of a result than if you don't like do the cooking and cooling. Yes?
I don't know people, I don't know what type of butter we should have.
Oh, well, none, if you had my true answer. I love nature's butter, which is avo, right? But I'm going to show you some things that you can use in place of butter, and I actually make a kefir butter. Okay, so that's the way to go. And it's in my new book, just letting you know. So it helps with your blood sugar control and your bowel regularity. And what's incredible, so we know about soluble and insoluble fibre. I don't know how much time I've got. But let's not go there, I guess. But totally incredible how we need that soluble fibre. Okay, so that's really the bulker. That's those gel-like substances in our body. So think of like flaxseed gel, for instance, or psyllium husks, right? When we eat those kind of foods, they bulk and they push. And then your insoluble fibre, resistant starch makes up part of your soluble fibre in a way. But we need both types of fibre to help feed our bacteria, create butyrates, and then of course also bulk those stools and get things moving through the pipeline. Okay, probiotics we know are super important, and if I had $1 for every client that comes to me and says, you know what, Candice, I've tried every probiotic under the sun, nothing works, and I'm like, okay, can I just ask you, do you eat any prebiotics? And they're like, what the? I'm like, that's your problem? Okay, if you're not having prebiotics, you're literally just pooping out heaps of money. So you need to have prebiotics before you even have your probiotics, and really having the 2 of them every day is the way to have optimal health. So probiotics can only be pro and hang around if they've got food and somewhere sticky to hold on to. If we can hold our questions to the end, my sweet, we'll get through this, okay? So fermented foods, of course, are high in probiotics. Your sauerkrauts, your kefir, anything that's been fermented, so your misos, your tempeh, all of that stuff is really good. But we'll have a look at that more in a little bit of detail. So how can we correct it with probiotics? Well, as you can see, because we have 300 to 500 different strains of probiotics, then we need to make sure that we're having a huge variety of actual probiotics. Otherwise, you're kind of hitting the mark, right? So imagine our microbiome as a big dartboard, right? If you are just having one type of a probiotic, so whether it's like just a bit of yogurt every 2-3 days, or a little bit of sauerkraut like once a month, it's like you throwing that dart out the window this way instead of over here. Okay, so like you got to hit the mark, guys, and hitting the mark means every day you're purposely eating prebiotics, you're purposely eating probiotics. Okay, and that's the way to balance and to get more and more plant diversity. They've actually found that you need to have 30 different types, well you don't have to, but the aim is to have 30 different plants that you're eating each week to actually have the best microbiome. So plants can be seeds, nuts, vegetables, fruit, legumes, grains, like there's so many, right? And as long as we don't just eat like Wheat Bix and this, like we're good, we can get into it. I count mine like every month or so, and I eat 50 to 60 different types of plants a week. And that's really easy when you have an amazing organic garden like I do. But you have to be purposeful as well. So make lots of things that have like 5 or 6 different plants in there. Sauce is a really good way to put a whole bunch of variety of things in. And just make sure you're eating colours and all different types of foods. It becomes easier, I promise. So we can't completely stop the bad bacteria from entering, but we can have that strong probiotic presence in our guts to protect and to fight any munchkins that happen to get through. So, for instance, who here has gone overseas and got the dreaded belly? Anybody? Wow! You guys have never travelled overseas then, right? Okay, wow, you survived Bali without the Bali belly. I'll give you 10 points. So when I go overseas, because I'm often overseas in all sorts of like third world places, right, where like the water is questionable, even the bottled stuff, you know what I mean? And so when I go there, guess what I take in my arsenal of first aid protection? I'm taking probiotics, I'm taking charcoal, and I'm taking greens in a powdered form or a capsule form. And guess what? Never have I ever, okay? But you need to be doing that all the time to have a nice strong immune system. And then when you do come across these munchkins in your travels, which you will at some point in your life, you have a way higher chance of fighting it so it doesn't even cause an issue, okay? We need to strengthen the immune system and improve mental health and promote that healthy metabolism, okay, so supporting that microbiota. So obviously probiotics should be dairy free because we've already talked how the dairy itself is dodgy for your gut health. So I don't know how we can even consider having a dairy supplement for probiotics. So go dairy free, but food wise, it's your fermented products, okay? Any kind of plant-based nuts, milk that has been turned into a yogurt, and of course probiotics that you can take in capsule form, kefir, kombucha, and kimchi and sauerkraut. And actually, today you're going to be having like a probiotic power-packed little taste test this afternoon, and so your gut's going to love you tonight. Now let's talk about kefir because we're about to do a demonstration on kefir and how easy it is for you to do at home, and how this is the #1 probiotic and even prebiotic, if you do it the way I'm going to show you, food on the planet. You're actually going to set yourself up for complete health. Now, today you can go to Coles and Woolies and you can buy kefir milk, yeah? Anyone ever tried it? It's not nice. It's not nice. It's not as nice as you can do yourself at home, and plus it hits the old hip pocket as well. So, kefir though, even the ones that you buy from the shops, if you look on the back, not super, it's definitely the best that you can get out there at the moment on the market. There's way more than 2 or 3 probiotic strains, which is awesome. But I'm going to show you how you can do a kefir at home with at least a minimum of 30 probiotic strains. And in some cases, if you've got the direct kefir from Turkey, the originators of kefir, then you can have up to 62 strains of probiotics. So it's quite incredible. So let's look at kefir. It is full of bacteria as well as yeast. So sometimes we think only bacteria is good and yeast are bad. Yeast are actually good. We need that, it's part of our microbiome. You just don't want to get an imbalance of the yeast either. Same with the probiotics. So the major strains, of course, are your lactobacillus and your lactic acid. And these, of course, out of any food on the planet, when it comes to gut health, these are going to give you the best microbiome, the diversity than any other. It's way better than sauerkraut. Sauerkraut has 5 to 11 strains of probiotics. And like even your miso and your tempeh, just a couple of strains. But kefir is like the king of all probiotics on the planet. So you really want to go ahead and have him every single day. These are some of the strains that milk kefir has. I'm not going to read them out for obvious reasons, but you can see that they're also high in vitamin B2, okay, and 12, and D and A, magnesium, zinc and protein. That's actually a wonderful health food. In fact, I think that you could live off that at a stretch because it has really most things that your body could need. But what about postbiotics? This is becoming the new treatment method. I use it all the time in clinic. And postbiotics are actually like the new kind of different version of probiotics. And what they actually do, these spores are able to withstand the digestive system all through the gut and the acid. And so they're able to get right down into the gut where they become active, and then they work so hard and even better sometimes than probiotics. So they're just incredible. And the science is unlocking every day almost new and exciting ways and different types of spores that are now being used in treatment protocols. And I'm very excited about the next 10 years. Already we are treating so many diseases with specific go-to particular strains of probiotics. And I think it's only a matter of time where even you'll be able to go to your doctor and they'll test your microbiome and say, oh, this is out, that's out, here you go, take this, right? So I'm very excited for what is coming, but we can be one step ahead of the game, hey? So very, very important. Unlike normal probiotics that really just reseed, so they help your probiotics just to like grow and multiply, these ones recondition the gut and the lining, so they're actually helping the whole environment as well as the production of actual probiotics. So very, very exciting. One of the big things that postbiotics do is reduce inflammation, which of course, and because they produce butyrate, butyrate's anti-inflammatory, right? So they're helping so many different aspects of our body. Okay, you want to get tested? I definitely recommend investing in your health, because I'm a huge advocate of finding out where are your weak spots, knowing about them. That makes a massive difference, right, in your choices, in your diet and lifestyle choices, but then also as preventative medicine. I'd much rather be helping people who are like, hey, I want to know how to not get sick. I'm like, you're my favourite person ever. Instead of people coming to me and like, I've got last stage this, what can I do? It's way easier and better to prevent disease than to treat it once you have it. But of course, either way, there's a lot that you can do for your health. So the 4-pillar gut profile, it checks your complete microbiome mapping. It tests everything, and you'll actually find out what's wrong. You might even have never heard of this thing over here, but he's causing you lots of issue, okay, this particular bacteria. It's going to do all of your food sensitivity testing, all of your intestinal permeability. You can know if you've got little enterocytes that have not been able to stand up and stay strong in their march. And you will be able to then know how to specifically and target the treatment protocol. So for us as naturopaths, it's just like, that's all we want. But not everyone can afford it. It is a bit pricey. Okay, so you're looking at around $900 to get this done. But honestly, I recommend 2 things in your life if you can ever afford it. One is to get your complete genomic profile tested. With genomic testing, we can test when or if, first of all of your risk factors. So you might have super high risk factor for Parkinson's disease or for heart disease or whatever. And we can test if you are going to have an Alzheimer kind of issue or neurodegeneration, and we can even test now within the decade. So if I tested one of you and it goes, oh, you'll have a very high percent of having Alzheimer's, let's just say, and you're probably going to get it starting in your 70s. That's how close we are now to being able to predict, based on your genomic profile, your health status and how to prevent. And it is life-changing. Imagine if you knew, right? Wouldn't you change everything and stop living so haphazardly? And then, if you can afford that, get this as well. These are the 2 best things, because you're going to know everything. Remember, 90% of our body and health is all bacteria. So you really, if you ever can, I'd recommend it. It's definitely the best investment you can ever make. You can get a cheaper version, which is just one portion of that 4-pillar gut health, and this is the complete microbiome mapping. I do all of these, so if you're ever interested, you can literally get that done through me, but it does test a lot, as you can see, okay, and this is only half the price, but something to look forward to. Now, when it comes to bacteria and longevity, there are 4 bacteria that science has found, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more in a couple more years, that are linked to people that are only living in centenarian guts. Now, I want to live as long as I possibly can on this planet, because I've got a lot to give, right? And I've got a lot that I want to get. And so these are also wonderful names for children. Not the first one, these sounds a bit like that, but Adorabacter, he is found in everyone who's a centenarian who's been tested. Okay, and he creates huge amounts of butyrate. Butyrate is linked with longevity. 10 years extra longevity if you've got him in your gut. Not everyone has him, in fact most people don't. When I do the gut profile testing, never see him, okay? Because guts are, these days, trash. Okay, Acinetobacter. Acinetobacter produces valeric acid, which regulates motility and reduces inflammation. Don't we need butyrates, and don't we need anti-inflammation? Absolutely. If you want to have no disease and live long, you have to have that. Now this is one that's a good children's female name. Kristen Sanella. Meantime, Kristen Sanella. I think that's beautiful. But for a men's name, Akkermansia. Anyone else? Sounds like Thor's cousin. Anyway, okay, so Kristen Sanella is linked with low BI, which we know is important for longevity and for gut health. In fact, if you have a big gut, it's not all bacteria, it's more than 1.5 kilos, I'm just saying. But we need to have the lower BMI, and this guy is linked to skinniness. is a skinny bacteria, okay? And Akkermansia maintains that protective layer, which guess what? No munchkins getting through into the bloodstream, no autoimmune disease, that means you'll live long. Isn't that great? See how they all work together? Oh, I just love them so much. Anyway, they also all help together to maintain stopping inflammation and just improving immunity. So you can see why they are the longevity genes. Okay, we're finishing up. Fasting. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a huge fasting advocate. In fact, has anybody here ever heard of FMD? The fasting mimicking diet. Anybody? Okay, you're going to hear about it right now because I'm a huge advocate. I do it every single month. What it is, so he's a doctor, but he's also a professor, Walter Longo, has spent his whole life, over 30 years, researching and finding out how to live long. So he's that longevity doctor. And he has found that, for starters, you need to have a good gut. And he has found that fasting, just for 5 days a month, and it's not even the kind of hard fasting that you're probably imagining right now. You actually get to eat, I promise. You're just having a slight calorie restriction. And when you do that, your body gets into a state where Mr. Akkermansia, he can thrive and he grows and he multiplies. So your longevity genes actually, even if they're not there, they will be produced and they will grow, and every time you do it, it actually will prolong your life, okay, longevity-wise. But what he found is that if you are like a normal person, in most cases, where you have a terrible, terrible diet, and all month you eat like really, really bad, but then you do this fasting mimicking, which is a program that you just have 2 meals a day, it's all plant-based, low protein, it actually fixes your metabolism, it improves your gut microbiota, it also helps with weight loss, it increases your GLP-1, okay, so think of your Ozempics and your Mounjaro and all of those weight loss drugs, it literally does it to you for yourself during those 5 days. But after the 5 days is finished, for the whole next 3 weeks, you keep getting the benefits of that fast, but you're not even fasting anymore. And what he has found is that people who live the worst normal standard American SAD diet, when they do the fasting mimicking diet just once a month, it's even fixing their cholesterol and fixing all sorts of health issues just by doing that. So I do it because I want to live long and, you know, I just love fasting. But it's a doable fast that every human being can do because you actually still get to eat. So you're eating usually on average around 800 calories a day, but it's not just about cutting calories, it's literally about the right amounts and ratios of fat, protein and carbs, because that keeps you into a mimicked fast state. Your body thinks you're doing a water fast, but here you are over here having nibbles twice a day. So it's actually the best and very doable way of doing this fast. Now you can actually buy his kits. It'll cost you a fortune, I'll just say, or you can get some programs from me, which I've done all the science for and all the hard work out, just got to follow it. And if you do that once a month, it helps autoimmunity, it helps metabolic diseases and issues. Pretty much any issue that you have, this diet has the research to help. The other thing they found is that it actually helps you to overcome cancer way quicker. And he's even done it with people who are taking chemo and radiation. And guess what? If you're doing this fast, over the time that you get the chemo, and you're getting the chemo on day 4, you actually, your symptoms go from like 90, 100% down to under 30% with your reactions to chemo and radiation. That's incredible. That alone is like a selling point. So you're going to hear more about this. It's all very new and exciting, but you can literally buy online his Prolon fasting kits, and you just have to do it once a month, and it's absolutely going to change your life in every way, okay? But I digress, let's move forward. Okay, oh yeah, Mr. Akkermansia, he loves it when you do a fasting mimicking diet because he increases massively. And all of these people who have Akkermansia in them, so these centenarians, they all live very calorie restricted diets, or they have at least portions in their month. A lot of them like fast and pray for spiritual reasons, a lot of them just do fasting, and just most of them know how to shut their goblet and not overeat. Like that's always something that we in the West we never got that memo as we were growing up, right? It was kind of like, you get in there and eat that takeaway or you're starving. It's like, okay. And so we kind of haven't had the best start to life. I'm talking about my own self, of course. But anyway, but there are other lifestyle factors that actually affect our gut health, and they have nothing to do with shutting our goblet. Exercise improves your gut diversity. So if you need more strength, you better be exercising. It's any type of exercise, walking, jogging, biking, swimming, and resistance workout as well. They actually help your gut. Who would have thought? It's got nothing to do with you eating a probiotic. It's incredible, right? Sleep. Sleep is the biggest thing. You really must regulate those circadian rhythms. So get that early morning sun in the morning. That will help to produce serotonin. That will help you to sleep better that night. Okay? And stress management. That chronic stress is going to take years off your life. There are certain gut bacteria that help you to lose weight or keep your body weight under. Now notice that all these centenarians all have this Archimensea. And why? Because it is the weight loss probiotic. It's one of them, there's many. But you want Archimensea. His favourite condition to be made is to fast. His favourite way. But another way that you can get him every day, even when you're not fasting, pomegranate juice or pomegranates. So eat your pomegranates. I prefer eating it over juicing it. But pomegranates will also increase your Archimensea. My girl's name, Kristen Senella, she is very helpful for influencing you to get rid of your fat storage. Okay, so think of this also as like a GLP-1 kind of probiotics, bacteria, both of these guys. All right, there are certain supplements you can take. As I said, if you've got biofilm, you better get rid of that stuff first. There's a whole bunch of supplements that I like to use to literally like clean out all that biofilm, get rid of those dodgy bacteria, any viruses, pathogens, any kind of fungal overgrowth. There's a whole bunch of those. But then of course there are wonderful prebiotic supplements that you can get. So the Gastro AG, that's that Arabic gum, that was the top highest prebiotic on the entire planet. But otherwise, boil and cool your potatoes and you're good, okay? But you want to do it all the time. And then of course, there are a whole bunch of other leaky gut repairing of the enteric lining that are helpful, okay? So these are great. If you want any of these, I can prescribe these to you, so just contact me. And then of course, your spore biotics. So this is my favorite one at the moment. There's a whole bunch of other amazing ones coming out on the market. But really you want to be doing your spores, your postbiotics, as well as pre and probiotics, okay? All right, so how can you track if what you're doing, all this amazing stuff that you're going to implement is actually working? Well, within days and weeks, you should start to have regular stools. So you shouldn't be squirting and you shouldn't be eye bulging. All right, it should be perfect. You should sit up there and go, oh, it's done. Let me continue with my day. You should also have less bloating and like just feel better in general with your mood. And of course, fewer cravings. And the cravings that you'll notice that should subside are cravings for high fat and sugar, okay? If you stop craving those, it's like your gut is getting happier and healthier. Medium term, so within weeks and months, you should start to notice clearer skin and stronger immunity and deeper sleep and better metabolic results in your lab. So you shouldn't have cholesterol issues, you shouldn't have a whole bunch of other issues there like high HbA1c and fasting blood glucose. So these are all very measurable. And then of course, aiming for 30 at least different plants a week. It's actually pretty easy if you start counting them. You'll be like, oh, I just did 10 today. You know what I mean? Like it's quite easy to do. So that's how you'll start to notice. Now there's also a whole bunch of hydrotherapy and poultices that you can do internally in your gut. So we all know castor oil is amazing. I love it for everything. These days you can buy amazing castor oil packs that make it really, really easy. But that's great for anybody with, really severe gut issues. Specifically, we're talking colon issues, okay? Because it's going to help with the peristaltic action. It's going to break down any excess, stools that are kind of not moving so well. There's a whole bunch of other things like sitz baths and Epsom salt baths and wet sheet packs and dry skin brushing, all amazing for your gut health. Okay, so start getting into that. Other things as well, cypriol, marshmallow, psyllium husks, bentonite clay, aloe vera juice, L-glutamine. Licorice root is fantastic as long as you don't have high blood pressure, so don't just avoid it if you have high blood pressure. And then chia gel and flaxseed gel. Okay, cabbage juice, I love it. I give it to all of my patients if you can handle it. Any colour, doesn't matter, get it into you. So when I juice, I only juice vegetables, okay? But make up a bunch of veggies that are going to help you with your gut health, that are going to help as an anti-cancer, do the best ones, and the best ones is cruciferous. So cabbage at the very top there. aloe vera, mint, chamomile, all of those kind of good stuff. Ginger, lemon, of course, and kefir, and celery juice, which we all know is pretty popular. All right, any questions, my friends, before we move on to the kefir demo? Yes, down here, my friend.
Yes, I was told a few years ago that I had leaky gut syndrome.
Yeah.
I went and saw the doctor, he said, oh, that's a lot of rubbish. And I get the feeling they're not into those sort of things because it's a naturopath and you can't have that. But anyway, recently I had to see a specialist. Apparently I've got a problem with my pancreas. It doesn't tell my body to digest the food.
Yeah.
And so Creon tablets were prescribed for me, and I was getting a feeling that they weren't working, so I went for 2 months before I went and saw the specialist again, and I didn't lose any weight or put any weight on, so I thought, well, this is a waste of time, you know. And so maybe it mightn't cost me $1,000 if we discovered that I might have this leaky gut syndrome. Is it a real thing? They put these things all over your body, like when you do checking your heart. Is that the way it goes?
So, I mean, that sounds like some kind of like a biometric testing. I don't use that because the best way is to literally test all of the different, you know, microbiota through stool and through blood and through saliva. So, yeah, I'm not sure what kind of testing you had done, but it is a real thing, and it's literally, these days a lot of doctors are very aware of it because it's no longer something that only naturopaths are aware of, which is great because it's out there. But yeah, you can easily get tested for it now and find out whether you really do have it or not.
Yeah, but the thing is, further to that, it could send a person bankrupt, you know, if you don't know exactly what it is and you've got to feed your things, you know.
Yeah, or you just have to like live as if you're treating it, you know, by eating all the right foods, and it'll cost you nothing except for your shopping bill, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
well, wife and I, it's only the last 5 years I've been a vegetarian, and she's been a vegetarian all her life, Maureen. And so we married a bit over 5 years ago, and I haven't eaten any meat or pork or anything like that
that'd
ever
be good,
since.
yeah, nice.
And I've lost a lot of weight. I was about 70 kilo.
Yeah,
Now I'm down to 50.
well, you look amazing to me.
Well, I'm 87, so I'm
Yeah.
walking, I'm starting to walk into the sunset like Candice would. Because of my age. And if
Yeah.
something happens to either of us, it'll be something big and serious, I imagine. So you might be able to solve that problem too. Anyone else got a...
I've been seeing a gastro team, and one of their last resorts they have to go to is a fecal transplant.
Yeah. Yeah, so and I love talking about food because I'm a chronic irrigation therapist. So that's a real thing, and it's actually very beneficial for the majority of people. Back in the early days, it wasn't great because people were getting like, it's all hygienic, don't get me wrong, and I would recommend it. If they're recommending it, then you definitely need it. So what it is, it's basically where they will take poop from somebody that donates it, and what they really love is they love plant-based, whole food plant-based people as their donors. I wish they did it here, because in America you can go and you can sell your poop. And so I would be rich, like I could retire from naturopathy. Yeah, because like I've got really good microbiota. So anyway, what happens is they get that, they clean it all, it's all hygienic, don't worry about it, and then they actually put it inside you, and that is like one of the quickest, best, fastest ways to repopulate your good bacteria, because they test now and make sure that they're not putting any viruses and dodgy stuff in. There was a story where years ago when it first started, that somebody who was like a triathlete had digestive issues. Back in America, they got the fecal stool implant, and she just started putting on weight, even though she was doing, you know, like her 30 k's a day and like bike riding and swimming. And then she went and got tested, and it turns out her donor was like extremely obese, and she got all the fat bacteria. So that's the only bad thing. But no, these days it's all tested and regulated. It's totally safe. I recommend it if you can. Yes, down the back here, and then yourself.
Well, by the way, Hippocrates was a philosopher as well as something else.
You mentioned about maple syrup. I used a lot of maple syrup, but I think I could have been using.
Ah, no, don't.
But what is a sugar alternative, a healthy sugar alternative that we can eat?
Yeah, so great question. And like, okay, maple syrup is not the worst. It's kind of like half better, 50% better than sugar. Okay, so we always just have to look at like the GI scale and like the GL effect on your body. So it's just that, especially honey. So honey's like way up there close to sugar. Honey's awesome and I recommend it, but only in small doses. Okay, even the Bible has a proverb that says a little honey is good, but too much will make you sick, right? So same with maple syrup, same with all of those sugars. I use maple syrup in a few recipes because you need a liquid sugar, right? And it's totally fine in small doses, but just don't guzzle the stuff. If you want to have a lower GI version, then go dates. Like whole dates, blend it up, amazing, super, super low GI, you got all the fibre in there. Date sugar is the next alternative. If you want ones that have no response on your glucose, then you can go for stevia. Okay, you can go for allulose. Okay, allulose is a totally safe, it is a refined sugar, but there's no, that comes from like fermented plants actually. Hard to get here in Australia, but it's coming. And then of course you've also got monk fruit. Erythritol is also will have no impact, but a lot of people get gastric issues with it, and there's like some mixed with other side effects long term. So yeah, stick with the whole foods or go for like stevia and things like that. Yes, Maddie?
Thank you.
I've got a sore back and neck.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'll get better, that's one. And coconut drink I always have.
Yeah.
And what else? Porridge, all different porridge good for us, I don't know. And I don't know, salad, we have different kind of salad every last time. And when we go out, we bring our bread, a sandwich with us. And what else?
Well, it sounds like you're on the right track with some things. And yeah, you just want to make sure that you're eating like lots of plants and like, yeah, I mean, watch out for the sandwiches if it's like a gluten type thing. Yeah.
What type of bread we should have? Like seed
Oh, I've got the
bread
best.
or-
So I've got the best. So obviously I don't recommend gluten in any way, shape or form, even if you're a non-celiac.
What type of bread?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to talk to you about it later once we finish the demo. Yeah, but yeah, you know, just keep eating the best foods that you can, drinking the best, you know, pure water, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you're doing some good things, so that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, if there's